Hi everyone, my name is Erik Sprowls and I was the series creator and director of In Neon, the college soap opera.
And I'm Brianne Dalphonso and I play Jennifer Burns.
And she did a very good job at it. And for the next hour, we're going to take you a little behind the scenes of episode 6 of the series and give you some little anecdotes and some things that happened and what we went through to make it. So let's get right into it. Episode 6.
Yay.
I couldn't believe, a lot of people couldn't believe we get out of the first one.
I know.
What do you mean you know? You didn't trust me?
No, I trusted you.
Well,
you know that.
Here's the 6th episode of the series, and a lot of people didn't think we'd ever get out of the starting gate. This was in production, like I wrote the script for the last 8 years, so we tried to get it launched 3 times, and
Third time's a charm.
third time's a charm.
Yay. That's my favorite, the opening. When I first saw that, do you remember when you showed me the scrapbook of the opening and I cried?
Yeah.
Oh,
Bree
it was a
in
tearjerker.
tears, everyone.
I was.
Well, if you're a real fan of In Neon, you know that this wasn't the the real open of the show when it first aired. So we reshot the opening when I remastered the series. You can see this shot of Old Main here. This is not the Old Main at California University. This is the Old Main of Washington and Jefferson College in Washington, PA. I think the same designer designed both college landmarks. So we were fortunate to have it look and feel kind of the same way. But I really missed the intensity of having an ambulance driving around when Brett's life was supposed to be hanging in the balance. So about 2 years after we completed, I went back and shot this stuff in Washington, Pennsylvania with the Washington Chair and Ambulance Service. And they were real accommodating. A couple of nice folks went out with us and just drove around with their sirens on and gave it a real feel of emergency going on. You know, Brett's very life hanging in the balance. And it turned out real well. In fact, the chatter you hear is really from the paramedics who helped us. They had kind of a cameo role in the opening. You know, I said, help us out, and they gave us the chatter that you would hear with a stab wound like that coming in. This hospital is located in Washington, Pennsylvania, which is actually my hometown. That's the exterior. The funny thing about it is the interior of the hospital that you see here is conveniently located on campus. It's the campus infirmary, but you know, some crafty editing here and you'd never know the difference.
I thought that was funny too when I first saw that.
You look pretty flustered here, Bree.
Yeah, I know. Well, because that last scene, there was Laura and Cindy were not sitting there, so I had to like talk to myself.
That's some other funny things about editing that's neat. They weren't even there at the time you shot that. I love when you come barreling through the doors. I love that. It's like, I'm out to find out. Nobody's going to tell me to stop. I want to find out what happened to my man.
And you know what? Surprisingly, those doors are really heavy.
It's because you're like really small.
Watch it.
You know, the one thing I wasn't happy with, I'm probably unhappy with about 5 things in the whole series.
I was unhappy with my roots right there. They looked really bad.
That's it. That's what I was unhappy about.
I was.
No,
Okay.
I was unhappy at the fact that they didn't have more things to play with in the infirmary. For instance, you know, he just got gutted. He should have like the tubes in his nose and the heart, I don't know the technical name of the heartbeat thing next to him, the scanner, and make it like a real serious situation.
Yeah.
But, you know, because it's a no-budget production, we just didn't have the money to do that kind of thing.
But I don't think a lot of people caught on to that, though. You know what I mean? Like, it could be on the other side. You never really, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just happy to have a hospital.
Yeah.
You know, I went to the Washington Hospital originally, and I said, can we shoot here? And they went through all this rigmarole. We got to fill out forms and tell them months in advance, and like, knowing the way we do things, we don't got time for that.
No.
I'll just go to the campus infirmary.
And it worked out. I think it looks good.
Yeah, I think it looked pretty decent from what we tried. You know, Brett's got the bandages on his face. You know, something bad's happened to him, and it's you know, the whole point of this is supposed to be it's a student production, and we're supposed to have some fun and make a TV show. It's not like we're going for an Emmy here, well, yet. And
who knows?
But you know, who knows? So that was the whole point, just to try and crank out something that would be fun. When I first put this together, I was a little sure about throwing this flashback in. But the one thing I noticed over continuing series that you watch on TV is you can't come into it halfway through without knowing what's going on. Even if you have the previously on in Neon or previously last time on the show, if you come in now and you're late tuning in, I like things to be set up so I'm like, oh.
Yep.
Which is kind of sad. I kind of like the montage. You're supposed to be thinking about all these good things, and you've taken so much for granted.
Exactly.
You know?
And I like the way you did that too, because it's not, you know what I mean. It shows that, like, you know, even though I don't want it, it's not, Jen doesn't want to admit it. She really does care about him.
This particular scene right here,
yes,
is not an actual take. This was in between takes, and you were trying to work up tears, and it just wasn't happening.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I put it in there anyway.
I didn't know that.
Some of the best acting is when you're not acting like you're acting. Wow. That was a take, actually, where you're trying to say, give me a moment, and you're trying to work up some tears, and I kept it. I thought it was neat.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And since this was a very serious scene, we never had a serious scene like this on the soap to this point where, you know, somebody's life is actually in danger. I thought it'd be kind of funny to have a little comedy thrown in here.
And that was actually me screaming.
That's right. This turned out to be a really big laugh. A lot of people thought this was hilarious. And the guy that says, hey, that's actually Jared, who plays Brett, laying in the bed next door.
Yep.
But it was kind of like a little lighthearted thing that we did.
I liked it. I thought it was good. Because it's so serious that, you know what I mean, he's laying there. Is he going to live or is he going to die?
And I kind of like the fact that Dante's able to make fun of himself, or Mark is.
Yes.
The one thing I wasn't happy with, and I didn't notice until I started doing post-production on the show, is he always says, how the hell am I supposed to know? A lot. And I wish I wouldn't have done it that way.
I really like the way that this scene was shot.
I wish I would have had a steady cam.
Yeah, but you have to do with what,
You know?
what you have, you know. I really like the way this is. And I think that this shows that, you know what I mean, we're all very talented actors. I mean, this is, you have to think about it. We're all friends as well. You know what I mean? We all sit and joke, but, you know, when you know it's time to be serious, I think this scene was just powerful, you know. And
the fortunate thing was it takes place at Christmas time. We shot it accidentally at Christmas time, so we didn't have to decorate.
Exactly.
You know, it's supposed to be New Year's Eve. The part of the doctor is played by Jeff Helsel, who is a good friend of mine at CUTV. We'd worked on a lot of shows before. We did a news program. We did a show called Fright Night Friday. We did various commercials and whatnot. And he's a good friend, and I'm glad that we were able to find him a bit cameo in this. And I like the little thing there Mary did. She actually, the whole soap opera, Jack is trying to have a cigarette, and he never does have one. And she takes it out. So even in the height of all this crap going on, there's little nuances there that carry throughout the series.
Yeah. That's definitely one of them. I do like that.
I like all the tears you got worked up there.
Thanks.
You did a good job working up tears. Look at that. It looks like a little tear store. Well, one of the cast members, I'm not going to mention names, wasn't very happy with this. They said that we didn't spend enough time in the hospital with Brett in there, and you know, we should have spent a lot more time in there. But you know, I'm not all about gloom and doom. And he was stabbed. It wasn't serious. He was beat up, and you know, you're recovering, and you're by his bedside, and you have that worried look like you're still worried about him. He just kind of woke up and let you know everything's okay. And I really like this shot here, right there, because it's like just the two of you. You're alone. The moonlight's on top, and we threw this in as a last-second thing where you kind of go, "You're all jacked."
Let me tell you, this scene was so hard to shoot because whatever JP, who plays Ackerman, did with his hair that day was just so hard to keep a straight face because and everybody too were making it was really hard to push him because he's if you would see the two of us together, he's much bigger than I am.
He's got a foot on you at least. I liked it because you don't care who this guy is, and you're not going to take shit from anybody. You know he did something to Brett, and you're pretty vindictive. But I got to tell you, we shot this at one of the area fraternities on campus. Then it was Alpha Kappa Lambda, and now it's Acacia. I don't know what he did to his hair either. I should have that day, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And I said, whoa, what's that all about? And you didn't want to say anything because he had it that way for a reason. So it was kind of one of those things where you didn't want to hurt his feelings either. But I said, okay, let's roll. But I don't know what he was doing.
Sorry, JP, that I said that, but your hair, my goodness.
I guess he thought it was stylish.
Maybe.
And I
don't know.
I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, action. I didn't want to make him feel bad, but...
I do like that passing. I do like that a lot.
And we do the dissolve there, so now you think it's maybe like a few days or even a week later. Mm-hmm. I don't want to spend a lot of time in the hospital, and we don't have a budget to spend, a big budget to have doctors and spend a lot of time. We can't take up all... this is a real facility. This isn't a stage set. Mm-hmm. So they have a job to do. We can't... They were very gracious enough to let us have the infirmary for 2 days, a daytime scene and a nighttime scene. Mm-hmm. And we're in the way, and we're underfoot, and there's business offices in there, and they can't give it to us to use all the time. So I was happy with what we got. That's why we had to get in and out.
Exactly. I think a lot of the places that we shot, were very nice with us. Fiddle's restaurant in Brownsville was actually very, very nice with us, coming in. And most of the places that we shot were just wonderful and having us in and letting us do our thing.
It's funny, this scene is supposed to be a few days later. Of course, they get him a Christmas present because, he wasn't around on New Year's Eve. They're kind of give him a little present on New Year's Eve. And it's now like, say what, the New Year's Day plus 3 days, like maybe the 5th, let's say 6th. And Dante, who plays Mark Bowman, it's very confusing. I'm not even sure I remember everything. Somewhere in the middle of this scene, he thought we were done, and he knocked the light over. And it broke. And it blew the light out, and we were out of bulbs. And I was like, ugh. He's like, dude, and he starts going off on one of his inpatient BP, bipolar, whatever it is, and he was just like upset. And I said, I can't do anything about it. We have to come back. He says, no, we can't. We finish it now. I'm like, no, you just ruined the lighting. It's definitely. It was, see the light on the left side of his face there. I'm not sure where it happens, but you can really tell. So we had to come back and shoot another day. So little things like that have to be taken extreme care of, or you blow the whole scene.
Especially with the lighting. One drop of those lights and they go, and you can't do anything about it.
It's a neat scene, too, because it's where Mark, who plays your cousin on the show, finally told Jen, what happened. You were stabbed for a reason, because he's dealing some drugs. And he's a little upset because he knows that you told her. And, he's pretty upset, obviously. He's starting to make some time with you. He really likes you, obviously. You're not giving the time of day.
No.
Shame on you.
Well, I have better things to do. Jen has, bigger, brighter things like Tom in her future.
Yeah.
She can't help it.
We'll get to that soon enough. We'll talk about Tom, who's wonderfully played by Jim Lokay.
That we will.
And we'll move on to that one.
We'll have much to say about that.
It's kind of a long scene, but it's necessary because it's a scene between, we kind of break it up with some activity with Mark. But
I knew it. I knew it. You did her, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
Well, no, you can't say that. You didn't do anything in the series yet.
I know. I just think it's funny because it's the only thing that Mark thinks about. You did her, didn't you?
It's funny. You see that thing on his wrist there? He started me on that. It was a little copper. It's a thing you wear on your wrist that puts copper in your system to help your blood flow.
Okay.
So I started using it.
Okay.
A lot of people ask me what that thing was on my wrist. I said, well, Dante started me on that.
I've always wondered what that was. He always has it on, too.
It's a magnet. We tried to, we did what we could. We have little flowers in the background. It's supposed to be some time later. And it's, Brett makes a pact with Mark that, he's had a brush with life and death, and he wants to try dating you. And he's not too happy about it. And, of course, Brett tried to hide the fact that it was Ackerman because he didn't want to get anybody hurt. He didn't want to say anything. And there he kind of slips, and Mark knows now.
But I think this scene's important, too, because he states that he's done. He's going to quit what he's doing. You know what I mean? And it's all of, well, we'll see it when we believe it.
Well,
see how the light's so harsh on him now? Now,
Yeah.
from this point forward, all the scenes were shot after Dante. We came back and shot it. See how it's a little bit more blue?
Yeah.
Can't really get everything to match up. And he's impatient to begin with.
That scene said it perfect, that shot.
but this is really weird, okay?
The university's really nice to shoot on, especially when you're dealing with this subject, because the campus provides everything. If you want an infirmary or a hospital There you go. You use the campus infirmary. Police station, you have public safety. Of course, since we're shooting a college soap opera, you have the college setting with the classrooms and everything. So we were pretty fortunate in having people that provided us with so many wonderful locales to use.
I'm talking, Tierney. If you hurt my cousin... Hey.
So there they make the pact, and he's going to try and help Brett with you and the situation because you're so cold.
I'm sorry. I can't help it.
You're ice in this series.
No, I'm not.
You're ice.
No.
Oh, yeah? Look at that. You're pretty ice.
No, I'm not.
You got this ego.
Jen has no ego whatsoever. I think she's like the quietest, shyest one out of the bunch.
The nice things that I like, the things that we do is like Mark knows exactly where you are, you know, and then we hear him just trot off down the hallway. This was a neat scene.
Hi. You want some hot tea or some Jello? The Jello here is really good.
One of the things that were hard to do this day, if I recall, maybe it wasn't this day. I'm not sure if you were. Yeah, I think you were there. The local press was there that day from the Post-Gazette.
Yep, I do remember that.
They were trying to take pictures at the same time. They were doing a spread on us for the soap opera for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and they were doing a spread, and they're taking pictures around us. I remember there was one take that you really nailed, and during it, he took a picture with a flash. I was like,
and you couldn't use it.
So I couldn't use that. So we kind of walked over each other trying to get his business done and our business done. But it was nice to have them there, and they wrote a really nice review of us.
That happens again in another episode.
In fact, it happens later in this episode. This one.
Oh, I guess it is, yeah.
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 This was a kind of an interesting one to shoot. And then, of course, you know, Brett goes through all this stuff. He's stabbed. He takes you out. He shows you this wonderful time. You know, you're getting close, and then you get back with Lunkhead.
Well,
Tom called. Yeah, hit him while he's down. And you say you're not ice.
well, no, but the whole thing, Brett tried to get Jen and Tom back together, and you need to talk, and you can work through things, and it's what happened. We worked it out. We're fine now.
I know you were almost stabbed and killed, but Tom called. Doesn't that make you happy? The thing is, I think the cool thing is about it, you keep on building the sexual tension in any show. And because when they get together, it's over. You know, it's the same reason that we get Mark and Laura together, and then we break them up almost immediately. You know, because when it's there, and it's here, it's really evident when you start running your hands up your shoulders. I mean, that was really good. Because you thought Brett's intent was to get you and Tom back together, so you're still kind of dumb.
Exactly.
You know? But you kind of start to like him, and he starts to like you.
And I don't look ecstatic that Tom called and we're back together.
No.
You know? I could be jumping up and down. You know? But I'm
and it's
not.
a nice long scene for you two to look at each other here, too, and it's kind of interrupted at the wrong time by her. Isn't that the way it always goes in life, though?
Yep.
There's something really good that's about to happen, and something stupid breaks it up.
Exactly.
I'd like to comment on your long hair there.
Let's not talk about it.
You kind of cut that later on.
Yes.
I'll get to that in one of my commentaries in the last episode.
Oh, jeez, great. It's something I had to do.
Beth Modricek, who plays the nurse here, one of the small cameos, she worked at the Weather Center on campus. And the soap opera took off so big, we had cameos coming from left and right. We had administrators who wanted to do something, theater professors, communications people.
It was hard to try to get everybody in that wanted to.
So now this is supposed to be maybe 2 weeks later, or a week or so later, and time's passed again. Because I didn't want to spend a lot of time in the hospital. I didn't think it was necessary. Okay, the impact happened in the last episode. He was stabbed. He's down. He's gutted. Wow. Let's get him better and get him back. Who wants to waste the talents of one of your lead actors in a bed all day?
Exactly.
So, you guys are discussing it at the local laundromat. Tell me about the laundromat. You guys were really doing your laundry that day, too.
Actually, yeah, Dante Mark was. He was doing his laundry. This is a rare occasion for me because I never do my laundry. I always take it to my grandma's house. But
don't.
No, I wasn't. But it was gross because he had his boxers in there and his underwear, and we had to keep like reshooting the scene, and I had to keep like taking them out of the washer, and it was just, sorry, Dante, I really love you, but it was gross.
How much money did you put into that thing?
I don't remember. Oh, we didn't put any money in it, remember?
You just stole it. So, after you played with Dante's gross underwear, that he was really doing, because I remember I said, all right, show up at the laundromat, bring some laundry, we're really going to do your laundry, and do a scene.
Yep.
What?
It was just, bad memories.
I like this scene, too, because it's kind of comical. He's always looked out for you, and now it's like he's trying to catch up. I like how he doesn't know where you are exactly.
And if you remember when we were shooting this scene, I couldn't get the hang of what we were trying to do, and I kept walking at the wrong moments. Mm-hmm. But it turned out real well. I like it.
I kind of like it. You're like the one who's underfoot. He's trying to keep up with you. It's like trying to watch a 6-year-old. You know what I mean?
Thanks, Erik.
No, I didn't want to say it. Don't take it that way. It's trying to watch a 6-year-old. It's impossible. Well, you've been overprotective of somebody.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's being overprotective of you, and he's the overprotective older cousin, but he's almost like the older brother in a way. Mm-hmm. And he's looking out for you in college, and no matter what he does, it ain't happening. Mm-hmm. And this was kind of an ad lib on Dante's part, right here. I kind of liked it. He walked into something. He's so flustered trying to keep up with you. You know how Mark knows where everything is, mm-hmm. and now he's starting like, what? And he's so flustered he doesn't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And this is where Jen kind of turns the tables on Mark, and he's prying into her life, so now she's going to pry a little bit and tell him exactly what she thinks of him and Laura.
Well, the purposes of this scene and the one coming up is, Mark and Laura have obviously kissed, and the sexual tension, like I said earlier, mm-hmm. is now gone. So we have to break them up. So you didn't mean to, but he's trying to screw your head on straight. You're trying to screw his on straight, but unfortunately, you're kind of saying the things that he doesn't want to hear. So inadvertently, you're kind of a reason that they have an argument later. You're kind of implanting thoughts into his head that, maybe she's not the greatest thing. I mean, she kind of gets around. I mean, mm-hmm. what her reputation is. And he's like, well, I didn't think about all this,
Jen's the sensible one.
Mm-hmm. You are pretty sensible. And you're not doing anything bad. You're just looking out for him. Mm-hmm. Now, I really like this next 5 minutes of the show because we cut back and forth between the house and the cleaners because she's having a similar conversation about Mark with Cleve. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of been planning some things in her head saying, well, are you sure you really want him kind of deal?
He married my evil stepmother, didn't he?
Now, the odd thing about this that I can tell you about, Grant, who plays Cleveland Grace, to this point in the series hasn't had really a lot to do. He's kind of like been almost a minor character, and his character expands a lot in the next few episodes. But he wasn't there when we shot this scene.
Ah.
This was another little secret. Like, we shot all his close-ups, and then when he left, I shot all of Laura's reactions because he was running late for something. I know what it was. He was shooting his own movie at the same time, mm-hmm. so he couldn't be there.
Oh, wow. And this scene, this last part I thought was kind of difficult to do because we finish each other's sentences, but it comes from another character at another point where Laura just finished my sentence, which you kind of trail off a little bit, and it's like, mm-hmm. felt kind of awkward not to finish.
Yeah, I kind of like it because the same conversation is going on in both places, mm-hmm. so I like how you guys finish each other's sentences. Because here's a good example right here.
Well, that's what people do. Did you like it? Did you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what the proper cinematic term is for that. When you cut back and forth, I think there is a word for that. Mm-hmm. But I think it worked out fairly well. By the way, those chips have been laying around on the set since episode 1.
Oh, yum.
And I remember Grant, do I really have to eat these? I'm like, you got to look like you're hanging out. He's like, all right. So he took one for the team. He's eating these, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes, an episode a month, 6-month-old chips.
Weren't there donuts like that too?
Oh, yeah.
There's powdered donuts.
Because we never went out and bought new ones. Just eat them. You know, that's a prop. Act like you're eating them. I told Grant, who plays Cleve, I said, he always looks like a little kid with his beaver hat on with that, hi, I'm going to the movies today, with his Mountain Dew hat on. But,
that's true.
Makes you think I'm weird.
you know the funny thing, too, is she's making all this food, right? And there's no stove. No one ever notices that.
That's true.
There's no stove. There's no real fridge. It's the house we shot that in was just a bare shell. And there really was, there's a kitchen, but there's not a kitchen. They didn't have a stove or a refrigerator or anything like that. And we got by, I don't think anyone even really notices that when she's getting cooking.
Yeah, I never really thought about it.
So now the seeds are planted in his head. You know, am I really doing the right thing? Nice going, Jen.
Thanks. Can't help it, you know.
And he's planted the seed in her head. Not so much that it's, you know, do you really want to date Mark? Because they're good friends. He kind of looked at her like, aren't you using him like you do everybody else? Because everybody knows she's kind of like the soap opera sleaze. But she's trying to get her life in gear. And you still haven't really learned what her big secret is either. You know, that goes on for episodes.
And it's funny because I think everybody kind of has a secret on this episode, like in the show. You know, Jen's, well, of course by now everybody knows, you know, Jen's past and Laura has a past. And
the funny thing about this is Mary, who plays Cindy, who answered the door, was always complaining that all she does in the soap opera is answer phones, answer doors, and yell, hey, blah, blah, somebody's here. And
or she overhears conversations. That was another one, too.
And I never really thought about it. And I was like, oh, quit your whining. And it wasn't until I put this episode together, I'm like, oh, my, she's right. So that's when we expanded her character considerably. And that gentleman you saw there, that was the first time we see Tom, isn't it?
Yes.
No. Oh, it's right. He was kissing, what's her name, on the porch. So now you're kind of indecisive here, you know. You know, he's trying to make up for what happened, and you're like, you know, I'm really digging Brett. Should I really go out with Tom? So you decide I better go.
Yes.
That was a good shot with you. And I like how he's downstairs and he's kind of just waiting around.
And this really shows what kind of person Tom is. You know, he walks around the house and, you know.
What's that smell?
You know, and he touches things and they're dirty and, you know, it's just.
Yeah, we really wanted to make him look like he was just like
a geek.
Not a bad guy, just like geek's not the right. Like there's some kind of phobia for it when you think that, you know, he doesn't want to be here. He's the kind of guy that would have a white house with a white rug. You got to take your shoes off when you go in. You're not allowed to touch anything. And he walks in, and you smell the stale beer, and you find the dust on everything. And I really wanted to do something silently so you could see what he's like. He looks at the Homer Simpson thing like, oh dear God. You know, I mean, it's not. He's trying to turn you into his vision of the perfect girlfriend, and that's not what you are.
And the more Jen hangs out with Brett,
because everybody likes Brett. Not that Tom's a bad guy. It's just that people are set in their ways, and you're not the one for him.
Picked it up.
And I loved how Brett and Mark pulled this off, this scene.
I didn't know about this scene until I actually watched the episode.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did.
My parents thought it was hysterical when they saw it.
I did. I really liked it.
Of course, you know, they wanted to get back at Tom, and this was part of Brett's plan. And, you know, that's another reason I didn't want to keep him in the hospital, because then you can't have this funny scene. So he makes up the scene that makes up the idea that his girlfriend, you, caught some kind of disease by getting around on campus, and you're trying to get him out of there. And it's funny how it's put together. You know? That way there's no actual confrontation. There's no real physicality in it. I didn't want Tom and Brett to meet yet. Because that's still something you're waiting for, and it just doesn't happen. So they kind of meet, and Brett's kind of victorious here because he plays a hand and wins. It's a kind of. At
first, I kind of thought that this whole scene was ad-libbed because I could definitely see them doing something like this. But I was very impressed with it when I saw it.
One of the good things about In Neon, since the first episode, you could tell in the first episode, which is still probably one of my favorites, people were stiff because they were uncomfortable around everybody else. But as the episodes were on and the months were on and we shot it, because we shot every episode like a movie instead of a TV show, everybody started to loosen up and feel more at home and at ease with the characters. And these two, these two brought off the scene wonderful.
Yes.
Jared steals it really because he's telling what's happened. But Dante, when he goes, "Wow," I think it's right here. I thought that was hysterical. Dante ad-libbed that. And you know what I mean? You start to feel more comfortable with the character and you get more into it. And I hated to see the whole thing end, because just when it ended and it's all over, everybody's happy, then they're starting to get a feel for the whole show. And it was just so much fun.
I did too. As much as I complained about it, once it was over, I watched episodes and I do get a little bit teary-eyed because I'm like, oh, I miss everybody, and I wish we could still do it, because I mean it was a lot of work, but at the same time it was so much fun.
And another interesting note there that for people that don't know how movies are made, Jim Lokay, who plays Tom, was not there that night. That was a month later.
Exactly, I do remember that now.
And just because he's supposed to be listening to the conversation, he really wasn't. We shot it on a separate night. And this was a fun night, I remember, because there was a lot of tension. But just because, you know, we're halfway through the series and the tension got broken. And if you've ever watched the behind-the-scenes special on the show, you and Jared and Dante and myself and some of our crew, I remember, that night got a little crazy.
Yes.
And we just started singing stupid songs. And in fact, we end the behind-the-scenes special in the credits of us singing this stupid song. The theme of this whole series, somebody made up the saying, "Get a receipt." Because whenever we buy something,
it's always get a receipt.
Always get a receipt,
yeah.
so we can turn it in. And to get reimbursed for it on the show. So we made up a song called "Get a Receipt," and it was just kind of funny.
There's actually another funny part of this night. Erik had spilt Coke all on my dress.
I didn't spill Coke.
Yes, he did.
It was Pepsi.
Okay, it was Pepsi, but he spilled it on my dress. I was very upset. But you really can't see it. So.
I know. I tried to make light of it too, because I went over. I was taking a picture of your spilled Coke stains, and I was like, isn't this funny?" And you know how you looked at me? See how you're looking at them? That's the reaction I got. I'm like, funny, and you're like, So you kind of got into character that way.
That I did.
It's kind of neat though. You bust them for what they did to Tom, and it's funny, those tickets I have, as well as Dante's cane, as some of the other props in the series, I've kept as mementos, and I have them all mounted now.
Oh.
I have them mounted on wood with lacquered and shellacked, and I keep them as props. I kept several props on the show. And I find more every day. Like I have, do you know that only one bottle from the bar survived?
Really?
One bottle. Like if you look on the bar, which is all fake behind them there, all the bottles are filled with water or they're empty. Only one bottle survived, because when we cleaned it all out, everybody trashed them.
Yeah.
And I saved one bottle and one coaster.
Wow.
And of course I saved Dante's cane. And there's some other stuff I saved, but they're kind of nice little props I keep. You know, I think I still have the gun that they shot Jared with in episode 4, and some little knickknacks here and there.
Jen, wait, where are you going?
This was a good ad lib too.
Drop dead.
I think Tom almost did that.
I thought that was kind of cute. Some of the best moments that happened on this show weren't even my idea. I'm proud to say that a lot of the best ideas came from you guys. As far as like, well, do you think this would be cool? Or what if we did this? And it was neat because it was really nice to see you guys were involved.
And it was nice to work with somebody like you who let us be, you know what I mean, evolve our character and input ideas. You weren't so set that you had it this way and this is the way it was supposed to look, but you were open for ideas.
I was not, certain things I knew I was a pain to work with because I knew I wanted it to go one way or another. But I felt that I was pretty democratic, and I was not autocratic whatsoever. Like, if you guys had ideas, I really wanted them. And that's what I liked. You guys started coming to me with ideas. You know, I was like, what if we did this? What if we did that? That was neat. In fact, it was your idea to come down the steps to emphasize something in his face. And I really liked that.
But then it got us in a lot of trouble too, because now look how many episodes we have. Because cast members wrote, you know, which extended it a lot and made it longer. And I mean, not necessarily that's a bad thing, you know what I mean? But now there's so much more to it.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. Originally, it was supposed to be 6 shows, period. And several people wanted to write scripts and ideas, and we expanded ideas so much to the point where. But I still liked it. I loved it, you know. So what? We got 12, 15 episodes of this. We were supposed to have 6. So what? It's still a lot of fun.
Oh, it was a blast. It was so much fun.
Well, we say that now. Back then it was like, oh, I hate you. I hate you more. If hate were people, I would be China. You know?
Yep.
So, but now we can say, oh, it was so fun working with you, Bree.
And I think too, like, it just reminded me, when he lays down on his bed, if you watch, basically all the beds have the same comforter, same pillows, because nobody really thought to bring blankets and things like that, you know, for our beds. And
yeah, we're not kidding. When we shot this was an empty shell of a house. We had to bring all the beds in, all the desks, and it was totally voluntary. There was no paid crew. I know I've said this before, but she's right. We had to bring everything. The phone, you know, in addition to the cameras and the lighting. You know, look at that outside lighting. We had to light up a house, you know, for crying out loud.
And that's, I think, a big part, too, that took a lot of time, you know, not just, you know, the acting part of it, but actually setting up for the scenes, you know, because then you have to move lighting, and then it doesn't look right, and you have to move it again, and, you know, with mics and things like that. Well,
the fortunate thing is when you're shooting a subject matter like this, you have the subject matter. You don't have to build the sets because they're right there. It's like you get up and bam, they're right down the block. So that's one of the nice things. So this is our own private lot, our own private back lot, really, that we used when we created scenes like this. Like if you wanted a library, we don't have to make one. You got one.
Exactly.
You know?
And a lot of the time, like with the lighting and everything, that's we didn't have an actual technical crew. We had a couple people, but, you know, we shot this, you know, too during class, so sometimes they were in class or had other things to do, so.
Sure? I got a bruise, you know, I fell, it was just totally stupid, and, I think.
You know what else is interesting? This particular scene, when we shot this, if you see Dante's close-ups there, but you see how his face kind of comes in the shot there? We forgot to shoot the reverse angles of Dante. So all the scenes right there, but not here. See how he's in the shot? When we shot his actual close-ups, we shot it a week later because we realized we hadn't shot them. So we went back and forth there. Some of the other hidden little mysteries we did.
There's a lot of them in here, you know, and like you can't really tell, you know what I mean? Not at all.
That scene was important too because we hadn't touched upon what Laura's bruise was all about since the cliffhanger in episode 2, and this is what, the 6th episode now. And so Dante kind of tickles her a little bit. She's like, ah, you know. So we want to get that back into play. So it's kind of a mystery of what's going on. And even though Cleve tried to implant a couple of ideas in her head about Mark, I didn't feel that it was strong enough because Cleve and Mark are supposed to be good friends, and they are. But sometimes, you know, it's like the old adage, you hurt the ones you love, you say the wrong things at the wrong time kind of deal. So I needed some guy from Laura's past to come up and like, hey, how you doing? How about if we go back in the back room? You kind of deal. You know what I mean?
And what better guy to do that except for Freddie Ryan?
Fred Ryan. He was one of our announcers at CUTV who covered Vulcan Sports on Fox Sports. He works at Fox Sports now, actually. And I never saw Fred act in my life. I saw him have a couple bit roles in some of the movies that Jared did. When he was making some independence. But,
and I never, when I saw this, I kind of had to laugh to myself because I never really could picture Fred playing a role like this. You know, which was...
It's the fun thing, too, because we're all friends with these people. You know, none of us are real professional actors. That's the fun part. So when you sit back and watch it, you start to laugh because you're like, oh my God, that's Freddie playing an ass. He's being a real jerk to her, you know? You didn't think that you had Fred the Red is so lovable. You can't picture him being so rude, but he pulled it off pretty well.
He did. He did a very good job.
I thought this was a pretty good scene, too. Very touching.
He's retarded. He's blind.
And I think it makes Laura stop and think, you know, is this really how people were looking at her?
Does she want to be part of that? And, you know, he's supposed to be a dumb, you know, a real son of a bitch anyway, so he looks at her and says he's retarded because he's blind.
Yeah.
Which doesn't even make sense in real life, you know, but it just shows the mentality of what he can be like. And then he calls him Stevie Wonder and laughs in his face and walks out. And of course, you know, Mark playing the butt of a joke comes out, and now she feels a little uncomfortable. You know, her feelings are a little rattled here. You know, she's thinking, is this what I'm going to have to deal with? And it was nice shooting it in the library. There's a nice variety of shots. You know, she's at her computer, like bookcases and stuff. And I thought it was kind of nice, you know, shooting it here instead of at the house. We could have shot it at the house, but we could have shot it anywhere.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to shoot it in the library, actually. We were supposed to shoot it in the middle of the campus, but it was raining that day. And I said, why don't we go to the library? And I liked it better here as a result because you can have people, you know, she realizes she's being watched. Is this what she really wants to live with? And this is how people react. You know what I mean? If something's going on, they're looking at you, and when you catch them or get caught, they're like,
Yep.
and they're looking around. It's a very sad scene.
It's nice too, like I sit here and I wasn't around when, you know, other people, you know, like for instance Mark and Laura would tape their stuff, so it's nice because I only know what I did, you know, I didn't show up to other people's shoots, and so it's nice to actually see, you know what I mean, it all come together and see what they did and be like, wow, you know, they worked just as hard as, you know, what everybody else did, and it looks absolutely wonderful.
That's the one thing about the show that I did like, because there were so many storylines going on. It was like a roller coaster. You could take, there was something funny in the beginning, then you had some mystery, then you had, oh, you felt so bad for him, but then all of a sudden this. You know, somebody's been watching the whole time, what's his story? And it turns out to be Michael Ackerman, the guy that she came home with in the first episode. The guy that stabbed Brett. And you're like, how's he tie into all this? And you find out in a couple episodes how exactly, but you're like, wow, he's been watching her the whole time. And you still don't understand what's going on. It's one of the neat things about juggling a show with so many characters. There's so many things that can go on at once. Like here's another storyline going on that isn't even really born yet in the show. It's not even really touched upon, with Jill, who plays Megan Withers, and Cleveland Grant, with his little boyish Mountain Dew cap on. You have to have that. I told him a couple times, please, turn it around so at least you look like a filmmaker. All filmmakers wear ball caps backwards.
Yeah.
You know, he looks like Willie the gas station attendant.
And I think he actually does in this scene. I think he does turn it around. There you
go. There you go. Now he's cool. Jill can play off one of those seductive parts pretty well, without being overly dramatic. She's more subtle. She's trying to, you know, hit on Grant or Cleve, and you know, a brief touch here and there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm getting all complimented." You know, his ego's through the roof, and you know, basically, she's a loss. she lives on her looks, you know, and she's asking him to help, and he's falling for it. We shot this at Noss Hall in the center of campus in January. It was a Christmas break. It was the winter of 2002. I'm sorry, 2001, somewhere in that area. And I remember it was very early in the morning, and we were up very late previous night shooting a different scene, and I was just sick as a dog doing this scene.
What are you doing Friday?
Let me check my schedule. Nothing.
But this is a storyline that has yet to be born, that gets pretty involved in the next few episodes. She's not who she thinks she is, and who everybody watches. She's very manipulative, only cares about her own interests. And you have one of those kind of people in soap operas, and she sucks you in, and he's falling for it.
You kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah, and that's, one of the reasons we had all this is because, Cleveland and his character and Cindy and her character don't have a lot to do. I mean, they do have points to achieve or certain levels to reach in the show. And we kind of threw some different storylines in for them to have to get out of. And I really enjoy the one you'll see coming in the next few episodes. But it was nice because we have minor characters like Megan here and her ex-boyfriend, Bobby the star quarterback, who is played by Jeff Sandusky. You've briefly seen him in episode 4, hassling Cleve in class, but now you find out why. He's the star quarterback of a football team, and she's like the head cheerleader, and you find out that he's a little steamed because she's making time with Cleve, and then Cindy walks in and overhears the whole thing, and you start to wonder why directors, how they say you do things in colors and wonder why. We specifically asked Mary to dress in red and to carry a red notebook because it's so glum in that stairwell.
Yeah.
But you can see her down there now with the red book, and he's hassling her, and she overhears the whole thing, and she now knows that she's plotting to get Cleve to help her by offering, the oldest tradition in the world, sex for favors. Mm-hmm. And Cleve is an idiot, so he's going to fall for it. It was a good scene between these two. Even and what I especially liked about it is they were minor characters, but they were so good at what they did, they kept you going.
Yep.
And it was a very interesting scene between the two. And she overheard the whole thing, and
I think she has to start to now too feel guilty because of what she said in an early episode about her and Cleve being together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's something that gets resolved in the next few episodes too, because she opened her big mouth and said something that never happened. Just because we've all been backed into that corner where it's like, you think one thing and it turns out to be, you say, well, yes I did because here's what happened. And she told a lie. Mm-hmm. And now she has to save her own ass. I like this here because he's supposed to be sneaking back into Laura's room, and then he kind of stops and does a double take like, what's all that crap on there? He doesn't he spends a lot of time in Laura's room, but that's something that Jess Vatter hung up because everybody in the series decorated their own room.
Yes.
And she chose some of her art. She's an artist by trade in real life. And so she has a lot of art that she's made and various things in her room. We did this on the spot, kind of like a joke. He's supposed to be all sneaking. Now, what's the last thing you do is answer the phone.
Answer the phone, yeah.
It's Laura. What are you doing answering my private line?
Why are you calling your private line?
I thought that was kind of neat, too.
Leave a message for myself on my voicemail, hence the term private.
And this was all Ted here.
Carry on.
I thought it was kind of nice. It was totally his idea. In fact, we got the idea because he was horsing around on the set in between takes, and he said, what would happen if I just answered the phone and there she is? Oh, whoops, see you later. And I said, let's keep that in there. That's kind of funny.
No, but I know where I'd like to see.
We did this scene about a dozen times.
Yes.
I needed you to hit this line right there and then keep on going up the steps for his reaction. And that was involved a rack focus, too, that was difficult. I like the end of this episode because we've ended every other episode with a cliffhanger. Every episode of In Neon ends with a cliffhanger. And I thought it was kind of nice to do one that didn't have one. To have a happy ending.
Yeah.
Because the last episode, of course, there's going to be you're going to wrap everything up. And there'll be some happy endings and there may not be some happy endings. But I really wanted to end one with a happy ending. This was not supposed to be here in this part, obviously, but since we started working out more and more stuff to do per show, I thought it was nice to end on this note. You have a nice reaction here, too.
Well, what would you think if you walked in and found what I found, your room covered with roses and flowers, and this was a very fun scene to do. This was the other scene that the reporters came in and we were trying to film and they were snapping the pictures, and so we had to work around them as well for this scene too.
These flowers were donated for a 3-hour window by Regina's Flowers in California, PA, because obviously we didn't have the budget to buy them. But she said, I'll donate them to you if you can use them in 3 hours and get them back, because she needs to resell them. And so we had to shoot all of this in 3 hours, just your reaction shots with the flowers. And you had some good reactions with it too. The reporters all over the room taking pictures, and you're surrounded by flowers. And of course, Brett apologizes for what he did by sending flowers.
Do you remember the comment that Grant made to the reporter? Because Jared was shooting his movie the same day, and we were watching him out the window. And Grant was like, yeah, that boy down there shooting a movie too. Go bother him.
That's right. One of the oddities about it was Jared, who plays Brett, was shooting his own independent movie, I guess you'd call it, outside down in the parking lot, down in the snow. You can see there's snow outside. And the reporter was in the way so much.
He just got really annoying.
One of the people on the set, Grant, who plays Cleve, said, go bother him. He's shooting the movie too. But I really liked how that episode ended, because it was a nice, happy ending. You don't get that too much.
No, that you don't.
And now here's the trailer for the next episode. So this is all going to start hitting the fan now. She finds out about the offer, the whole sexual harassment thing with Cindy, and Professor Filosi starts to come around full circle, and he starts to take it to the house there. That's the first time.
And I tell you what, Professor Slavin is one that I'm so glad you got him to play that part, because he's wonderful at it.
Oh, and he's good too. He's had a lot of theater experience. And of course we have to break these two up. You and Tom.
Yay.
And you ditched poor Brett for Tom.
I know.
You're so cold.
No, I'm not.
This was a horrible night. We had to shoot this train scene, and I'll tell you more about it in episode 7. But it was 2 degrees. No one wanted to be there. We had to wait for trains, and you have to tune into episode 7 to see what happened there.
But I will say it turned out to be wonderful.
Yeah, In Neon was a fun show to work on. When you look back on it, anything's fun. At the time we were making it, a lot of people, I don't want to say we were all at each other's throats, but it was hard because so many things had to come together. And, when you do any project like that, it's hard to get everybody on the same page, especially when they have other things to do in their lives. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
It was. And if one person would have just dropped off and left, then...
I remember there was a point that you wanted to quit.
Yes, there was.
And we had shot, 80% of the show? And we had 8 episodes in the can out of I think 12 or so. And you said, I'm out of here. I'm like, what?
Yep, it's true.
But I mean, that's with anybody. If anybody would have quit along the way.
And it's funny because people will come up to me and be like, is there going to be a second season? And I'm like, well, basically, all the main characters are almost all gone, so it's, well, replace them. And I'm like, I could not see anybody else playing Jen's character. No. Because I would be so critical of, how, they do it in soap opera, today, blah, blah, blah part will be played by blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, what? And it doesn't even look like them, doesn't resemble them, they don't act like each other, and I would be so critical of it.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people were asking me if we were going to have In Neon the next generation, and I was like, no. This is something that only happens once in a lifetime, where everything goes right, you have the perfect chemistry, you do it. Barnum and Bailey said it best, always leave the audience wanting more. Yep. So you do enough, you don't beat it into the ground. You do it, you have a good time doing it, you make it good, which I think we did, and you move on.
We had a blast.
Well, Bree, thanks for joining me today for this commentary. You did a wonderful job, and you were so nervous.
I was.
I've done 6 of these, so I'm a pro.
Well, this is my first one,
So you did a great job.
Thank you.
Maybe we can get you back to do another one later.
Okay.
So take care. Thanks for everybody for watching. Say bye, Bree.
Bye, Bree.
See you in the next episode. Take care.